Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Vedanta online course, which we'll be having the second session. This is evening for us, and I know for some of you, about maybe 200 of you in India, it's good morning, so good morning as well, and from wherever you're at. Let us start off with a chant in our traditional San Diego style. So we're going to do Asatoma, and if you know the chant, you can chant along. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Avir Maeti Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Enamam Pahi Nityam Enamam Pahi Nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, and guide us evermore with thy loving presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. So welcome again to our second session on the Vedanta online course on Karma Yoga. And in our first session, we know it's very important to have, we talked about darshan. And darshan meant, it's a two-way vision. So not only is it important for you to see the divine, but it's important for the divine to see you. In fact, that's why we're using the Zoom software, because our speakers have requested they would like to see the audience so they can pick up on what you're getting and absorbing, and if they can feel what you're not, they can try to inject helpful hints at that point. So if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with it, if you want to allow yourself to be seen on video screen, you can just go to your right-hand side on participants. Just unclick your video so that Swami Atmarupananda has a chance to see everyone as he makes his presentation. And one more thing here was that, so let's do a little quick recap about last week's session. So as you remember in last week's session, we had a beautiful talk by Pravachaka Vrajaprana, and she talked about the introduction to Vedanta. And in that session, she basically, in a nutshell, she said that we are all what we call this infinite consciousness, Brahman. And as Brahman, we don't experience our infinite nature because of Maya. Maya, she talked about, is this veil. And through name and form, time, space, and causation, it creates this world that we see around us. Also, Maya covers our true identity, she talked about, and we feel limited, finite, and always seeking. We have desires because we feel incomplete. So then what did she say we do? So how do we solve those desires? We take actions to help fulfill the desires. And every time we take an action, it has an effect, a karma phala. We get a fruit of that action. And that fruit of the action has consequences. And they create more desires. And so the whole thing is we find ourselves in this wheel of samsara, a chain. So the question today is, how can we get out of this binding chain of samsara? So what Swami Atmarupananda today is going to talk about is what actions can we do that will not create more attachment, more desires, that won't get ourselves bound more. Can we do such actions so that we won't feel a sense of limitation anymore? And in today's talk, remember, some of the questions he probably will address is the power of attachment and detachment. Can you work with also being detached in your work? Are there stages in karma yoga in what he's going to talk about today? Also, for those of us, what's the role of karma yoga if I'm a bhakta, a devotee? What's the role of karma yoga if I'm a yogi, a meditator? And if I'm a jnani, if I follow the path of knowledge, where does karma yoga play into that? So today, let me invite our beloved Swami Atmarupananda ji. I think most of you were sent a little bio data about him. He is a well-known Swami in our Ramakrishna Order, a senior Swami. He started out in Chicago and has been in various places throughout the United States. San Diego, where I'm at, was the longest place he has stayed in his life, he has said. And he has been in India. He was working on the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. He was just in India less than a few weeks ago, and he just came back. And so we are so privileged and happy to have him. So let's welcome Swami Atmarupananda. Thank you so much for being with us and for addressing us on this important issue of karma yoga.
Thank you, Swami. Thank you, and greetings to everyone. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes.
So, namaste to everyone, all of you in San Diego. There's some of you in Houston also, I know, and in India and around the world. So I'm very happy to join you and very thankful to Swami Harinamananda for arranging this whole series in which I get to play a small part. Tonight, yes, the topic is karma yoga and the yoga of service. And I will reframe it as the foundational yoga. The yoga, which is the foundation of all of the yogas, karma yoga. Oftentimes, karma yoga is just considered doing a little work around the ashram. Okay, this Saturday we're having karma yoga day, and it's a way of getting volunteers to come and help. But karma yoga is much more than that. That certainly is a part of karma yoga and something that our ashramas depend on, people coming and volunteering for service. But karma yoga really, as I would hope to explain, is the foundation of yoga itself. So let me begin with a prayer also. We've already had one prayer, but because I'm so used to beginning talks with prayers, until I say a prayer, I can't get into the talk. So, Om Sarvastaratu Durgani Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu Sarva Sadbuddhim Apnotu Sarva Sarvatra Nandatu. May all beings cross over difficulties. May all see that which is noble and uplifting. May all attain to right understanding. And may all beings everywhere rejoice. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So first, just a word about the prayer. It's a very famous prayer. Many of you, I'm sure, know it, and many of you who don't know it have at least heard it. Sarvastaratu Durgani, may all beings cross over difficulties. So it doesn't say may nobody have any difficulties, because that's the nature of life, difficulties. But may we have the strength, and may we have the wisdom, and may we have the inner guidance and the divine guidance to cross over difficulties. Then may we see that which is noble and uplifting. Nowadays, there's so much suffering, so much bad news, that we have to, yes, inform ourselves, know what's going on, know how to protect ourselves, know how to protect others, what other people are going through. But in the midst of that, we have to keep our eyes fixed on that which is noble and uplifting, so that we don't drown in the ocean of suffering. And then may all attain to right understanding. According to Vedanta, everything we do that causes us and others suffering is because of the lack of right understanding. So may we attain to, and may all beings attain to right understanding. And may all beings rejoice, because as Vedanta says, the Taittiriya Upanishad says, this universe arises in joy, it rests in joy, and it returns to joy, because the nature of reality is joy. So that we should not forget, even in the midst of difficulties. So Karma Yoga as the foundational yoga. So first, the place of Karma Yoga among the 4 yogas. Some of you who have heard me speak before have heard this, but it won't hurt to go over it again. And some of you, of course, have not heard me say it. And that is the relationship between the 4 yogas. Then we can find out how to come to Karma Yoga. So among the 4 yogas, there are 2 pairs. 2 pairs. One pair is Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, the path of knowledge, the path of devotion. The other pair, of course, is then Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga, the path of action and the path of meditation. So Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, those are the paths which pertain to our orientation to reality. Do I see reality, that is ultimate reality, spiritual reality? Do I see it as primarily personal? That is, in the form of God to whom I can pray, worship, devote myself, or do I see it as impersonal? If I tend to look on reality as impersonal, and my quest is to know the truth, to know ultimate reality, to know consciousness, to know being, what is that? Then my primary path is impersonal, and my primary orientation to reality is one towards the reality which is not a relational reality, but just reality in itself. But if my goal is to know the beloved, to find God, to love God, to devote myself to God, to seek the guidance of God, and then ultimately the realization of God, then I'm seeking reality as personal, reality to whom I can relate and which relates to me. So in Jnana Yoga, you're not seeking a relationship. You're just seeking what is reality, what is truth. I want to become that. And in Bhakti Yoga, you're seeking a relationship with the beloved, a relationship which can end in perfect union, but it's through relationship that you come to it. So that's, if you seek an impersonal reality, you follow one, a personal reality, the other. So they're concerned primarily with your relationship to reality. Karma and Raja Yoga don't care what you think about reality. They propose to lead you to reality, but whether you think of it in personal terms or impersonal terms, they couldn't care less. They are oriented towards practice, towards technique. If you primarily are introspective and you want to learn how to control the mind, how to master the powers of the mind, perfect the mind as an instrument of experience, then Raja Yoga is the path of the royal path, or the path of meditation and mental psychic control. If, however, you like to be active, or you need to be active, you want to work within the machine of the world and find your way to the other side through the world, then the path is Karma Yoga. If you like action, or if you need to be active, then the path is Karma Yoga.
Swami?
Yes.
We had a couple of requests. Can you just speak up? For some reason, the volume, it's saying, if you can speak up just a little bit louder.
Okay, yes. And let me pull the microphone a little closer also, that might help. Okay, so let me try to speak a little louder, and I'll pull up a little closer to the microphone also. So, and tell me please if it doesn't help. So Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga, they're concerned with the path, and the other 2 are concerned with reality. So there are people who follow Raja Yoga, like the famous Pauhari Baba that Swami Vivekananda regarded very highly. He was a Raja Yogi, but he was a devotee. He followed the path of devotion. He did puja, etc., as part of his practice. And there are others who follow Raja Yoga as an impersonal path. The same with Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, it doesn't matter what your relationship to reality is. It's about how you act in the world. So let's get into Karma Yoga now. Every yoga has its own view of bondage and liberation, what binds us and what liberation means and how we get there. For instance, Jnana Yoga, it said that the bondage is ignorance. We've forgotten who we are. And so we seek to know who we are, and through knowledge we come to our identity with infinite reality, with the self, the true self. Bhakti Yoga says that our bondage is because we have forgotten God. Well, we have forgotten God, and so the main practice in devotion, the essence of all of the many, many different practices in Bhakti Yoga, is to remember God, to think of God until that remembrance becomes so strong that we realize God, that remembrance becomes realization. And so the bondage is forgetfulness of God. The method is to remember God. And the goal is to unite with God through love and devotion and adoration. In Raja Yoga, it's the cloudiness of the mind, the faultiness of the mind, which is our main instrument of experience, which gives us a faulty view of reality. So by clarifying the mind, making it perfectly pure and clear, I can come to the experience of reality. Now in Karma Yoga, the bondage is attachment. Swami Atmarupananda in his introduction indicated that, and that's true. The bondage for the karma yogi, the primary bondage is attachment. And so the path of karma yoga is to develop non-attachment. Non-attachment means what? It means unselfishness, basically. And so in karma yoga, there's a sort of a chain of causation at this high level that we're from which we're talking right now. The cause of bondage is attachment, which rises out of the sense of egotism, I as separate from the rest of the world, I as an individual separate from the rest of the world, and that comes out of ignorance. So first there's ignorance, and out of ignorance I develop egotism. I think that I'm separate from everyone else, more important than everyone else. I need to be protected from everyone else. And out of that comes selfishness. This is mine, you stay away from my stuff, don't touch my things, etc. And so selfishness is the basis then of attachment. Or you could say that the egotism is the basis of attachment, and that attachment arises with selfishness. So the goal of the karma yogi is in one sense non-attachment, but it's further than just the idea of non-attachment. The goal of the karma yogi is freedom, mukti. That is the goal of the karma yogi. Whether you are seeking God as person or whether you're seeking the impersonal reality, you seek freedom in the midst of action. And that's what distinguishes karma yoga from other yogas. Yoga is not the goal of karma yoga. In bhakti yoga, the goal is bhakti, infinite love. In jnana yoga, the goal is knowledge. So jnana is the goal of jnana yoga. But the goal of karma yoga is not karma. The goal of karma yoga is to get out of karma, to be freed from karma. And so in that sense, the goal of karma yoga is freedom. Now you can conceive of freedom in different ways. You can conceive of freedom as resting in the bosom of God, identifying with God and God taking charge of everything, and I am free. I no longer have to will anything because I've given my will to God and I am free. Swami Brahmananda said when he was passing away, I'm floating on the leaf of faith in the ocean of Brahman. So just think of the wonder of that image, floating on the leaf of faith in the ocean of Brahman. So faith here doesn't mean I don't know Brahman, I don't know what it is, I don't know anything, but I think that probably there's a Brahman, and so I imagine that I'm floating on it. No, he was seeing Brahman, seeing himself floating in the ocean of Brahman. So for him, faith was vision. So, or if you see freedom as being identical with the whole universe, I'm freed from this separate, this thing, this ego, which makes me separate from everyone. I've become united to the being of the whole universe and that which is beyond all universes. Or I'm free in the midst of the knowledge of myself as pure consciousness, identified with pure consciousness, where I do nothing. Prakriti, nature does everything, I do nothing. So the goal of karma yoga, and however you follow it, however you conceive of it, is the experience of mukti, of freedom. So now, what is karma itself? Forget karma yoga for just a second or two. What is karma itself? I should also say, I've been for some years, I've been working on Karma Yoga Sutras, putting the teachings of Karma Yoga into sutra form. And so I'm going to be teaching from time to time tonight from the sutras that I've written about karma yoga. And so if suddenly I come up with a string of Sanskrit words, don't worry, you don't need to know what any of it means, but I use it to remind myself. So yat karyate iti karma kridhato. That means, that's one of the early sutras. That means that whatever is done, that is karma. Whatever is done, that is karma. And it comes, as Swami Vivekananda says in his Karma Yoga, from the Sanskrit root kri, which means to do. So kri, to do, becomes karma, that which is done. But then there's another associated sutra, sharirena vacha manasa. Whatever is done by the body, speech, or mind. So thinking is karma. Karma doesn't mean just hammering nails and sawing boards and digging ditches. Karma means the use of the mind, use of the speech. Meditation itself is karma. Any spiritual practice is karma. Singing a devotional hymn is karma. Offering puja is karma. And that's why karma yoga is the foundational yoga, because it deals with everything that you do. If you're following a spiritual practice, you're doing karma. If you go to the office, you're doing karma. If you're washing dishes, you're doing karma. If you're sitting watching television, you're doing karma. Everything is karma. So karma is action. Action done by the body, mind, or speech. It doesn't mean mechanical action, like the washing machine is not doing karma in the sense of karma yoga. Yes, it is action and therefore karma, but karma yoga does not deal with that. It deals with the actions of the body, speech, and mind of a living being. So then what is yoga? Now we know what karma is. What is yoga? Yogastu karmano muktiriti karma viyoga. So yoga in karma yoga, the yoga of karma yoga means the freedom from activity. The freedom from activity. So now usually yoga means joining to, but sometimes yoga can mean separation from also, viyoga. And so in karma yoga, as I said, the goal is not karma. We're not trying to immerse ourselves in work so that we become work. No, it's to become free from the very idea of work, so that the body, speech, and mind may be busy with their activities, but I'm doing nothing. I'm perfectly still in the midst of action. So, ata eva karmana kadachit karmano gamya no naivopaya. Therefore, we can say that the goal of karma yoga is never work, nor is even work the means of karma yoga. Now that sounds strange. Work is not even the means of karma yoga. That I'll explain now. Upayo anasakti. The means of karma yoga is non-attachment. And atra karma yogasya kshetram. Atra karma yogasya kshetram. Here, karma is the field of the yoga. In karma yoga, work is the field in which you practice anasakti, that is non-attachment. So non-attachment is the means. Work is not the means of karma yoga. But what you do in karma yoga is that you continue working. We'll explain why we have to do that, whatever yoga we follow, why we have to continue working in a few minutes. But in the midst of action, to practice non-attachment. So karma yoga is engaging in action, but feeling ourselves unattached from the action. And eventually, Swami Harinamananda mentioned in the introduction stages, but this is one big stage. One is engaging in action and practicing non-attachment. And another, a high stage, is reached when we feel that I don't do anything. And there's an intermediate stage which is very important. There's a Gujarati poet saint, Narasimha Mehta. In fact, I first heard this song of his, not sung, but I heard the words to it, the lyrics to it in San Diego from Swami Atmarupananda, who's in Sacramento. He has spent many years, 22 years in Gujarat, though he's Bengali. And so when he came to San Diego, when he first came to America, one of the first places he came to was Southern California, and he came to San Diego. And in his speech, at the center, he quoted this hymn, this bhajan from Narasimha Mehta, which says, the good person never thinks I have done something good. Now that sounds strange. If we're from a Western background, the first thought is, well, yes, of course, because we're all sinners and we can't do anything good because we should be humble and we should never think I do. No, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. The karma yogi never thinks I've done something good because the karma yogi does that which is necessary. If I see someone needing help and I go to help them, I don't come back and say, wow, that was really wonderful. You know what I did? I helped somebody. I'm really happy that I helped somebody. No, what else would I do? What else am I going to do? There's no question of helping or not helping. You know, I did that which was appropriate. I don't think about, wow, that was really good of me. I helped this old lady cross the street when she was having trouble walking. No, what else am I going to do? And so we start by practicing non-attachment in the midst of our activity. Eventually we come to a place where we find that karma yoga means doing that which is appropriate in every situation. And then we come to the highest stage where we feel I don't do anything at all. The body, mind, and speech, nature, prakriti, God, however I think of it, does everything, I do nothing. So, so again, karma yoga is this eventually the sense of doing nothing in the midst of, even in the midst of intense activity. So Sri Krishna says in the Gita, karmanya karma yah pashed akarmani cha karma saha. One who sees action in the midst of inaction and inaction in the midst of action is the yogi and the buddhiman, the intelligent person. And Swami Vivekananda says the same, that in karma yoga we have to learn to see inaction in the midst of action. So let me stop from this background material I'm giving right now to give a practical hint in the practice of karma yoga. And that is that when we're doing action, we have to learn to gradually lessen that sense that I am doing. Let the body, mind, and senses do. At first we think, well, how can I do that? Because I'm responsible. I've got to make sure everything goes right. Well, you find that it's not my being obsessive about controlling everything that makes things go right. Actually, the more that I pay attention, but the less that I feel that I am controlling everything, the better my work comes out. And so let me, in the midst of my work, say I'm washing dishes, and I'll tell you a problem I've had my whole life, which is thankfully through karma yoga, I've gotten over to a great extent, but it's something that plagued me my whole life. And that is that doing something like washing dishes, I would always think, when can I get over with it? Because I've got something else I want to do. I don't want to be washing dishes, so let me just, and there would be an anxiety about getting to the other side of it. Or if I was like at Trabuco and I had to join in the cooking schedule, I don't want to be cooking, so let me just get through the cooking, get over with it so I can get on to things that are more important, like studying a book or doing a writing project or getting out in the garden or something more important meant things that I wanted to do. And so I had to learn that no, whenever I find myself getting tense and feeling that I've just got to get this over with and get it out of the way, not because there's something critical which is waiting for me that I have to get to, no, it's just because I don't really want to be here now. I want to be doing something else. So when you find yourself doing that, then just back off, relax, and just focus on what you're doing, whether it's washing dishes, whether it's chopping vegetables, whether it's sweeping the floor, whether it's driving to work, whether it's taking care of kids, whatever it is. Learn to put your attention on what you're doing. That's the way, surprisingly enough, to get over the sense of being the doer. The sense of doer comes from separating myself from the work and trying to take control of it. But if I just let the work happen and emphasize being attentive, being mindful, then I find that things just take care of themselves more and more. So the essence of karma yoga, therefore, is, we come to another point, kartritva buddhi sannyasa. The essence of karma yoga is the renunciation, the sannyasa, of kartritva buddhi. That is the sense that I am the doer. That's the essence of karma yoga, getting over the sense that I am the doer. I'll come in a little bit to how bhaktas follow karma yoga, how jnanis follow karma yoga, and how Raja Yogis follow karma yoga. But first, let me say here that in devotion, we seek to overcome the sense of kartritva buddhi, I am the doer of action, by surrendering to God. God, you work through me, you do through me. I'll do the movements, but you do the action, you take the responsibility. I'm not the doer, you are the doer. And the jnani does it by saying, I am consciousness. I'm just the sakshi. I'm the witness. I'm not involved in the work. So step back and just let the work happen. And again, the first step towards that is learning just to be mindful of the work and let the work happen. Washing dishes, simple things like that, cutting the grass and so forth. It's very easy in such situations to practice this, because you find that all you need to do is to relax. You have to do it anyway. So why not just relax into it, do it, and do it mindfully, and you find that everything just sort of happens. You don't have to have the sense that I'm doing it and I want to get it over with because I want to be doing something else. I don't want to be doing this. No, that we can get over to a large extent just by mindful attention or by practicing surrender to God. So, kurvannapi na kinchit karoti saha. Such a person, this sutra means, and it's based on the verse from the Gita, such a person doesn't do anything even though his body, mind, and speech are engaged in action. He doesn't do anything even though the body, mind, and speech are engaged in action. So there's another thing associated with the sense of being an agent of action, the kartri, and that is the bhokta, karta and bhokta. Karta means the agent, and bhokta, B-H-O-K-T-A, means the enjoyer. And so we have this sense both, that I am the doer of action and I'm the enjoyer of experience. But no, we want to go beyond both. You may say, why do I want to go beyond the sense of being the enjoyer of things? I like to enjoy things. Well, no, that's fine. But if you enjoy things, you have to suffer things too. So here, being the enjoyer means the recipient of experience, that I am the one who is receiving the experience. And so then I have to receive the good and the bad equally. If I'm just the witness, I'm not really involved. I'm just watching, but I'm not involved. And so then in that way, I overcome the sense of being the doer and the enjoyer. So now, what is the difference between karma, just action, and karma yoga? Everyone is performing action. Everyone has to do things all of the time. As Sri Krishna says, nahi kasti kshanamapi jatutishtatya karmakrit. No one, even for one single moment, kshanamapi, not even for one single moment, can anyone be without action. Karyate hyavasha karma. So everyone is forced by the gunas of Prakriti to be active all of the time. I say, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit on the couch and just sit here all day. I'm not going to do anything. I'm sick of doing things. That also is action. I made a determination. I'm going to sit there. And while I'm sitting there, every now and then the feeling gets, well, I should get up and do something. No, I'm not going to do anything. So I'm doing something by saying, no, I'm not going to do anything. And then I start daydreaming. And that is doing something also. So every moment we are active. So what is the difference between just being active, just simple karma, action, and karma yoga? The difference is only in the mind. The difference is in the mind. And so karma yoga is a mental yoga. That's why I said at the beginning, it's not about doing things. It's about what you do with the mind while you are doing. So one of the brahmacharians that was with me in Chicago and Ganges in the early years of my monastic life, back in the late 60s, early 70s, he used to tell me, he was from New York, and he had a friend, a neighbor, who he said his father was the hardest working man he had ever seen. He said he would work 20 hours a day, extremely hard working. And he said the man was one of the crudest and worst and most violent men he ever knew also. So here this man working 20 hours a day, resting only 4 hours a day, and yet he was crude, violent, aggressive, and an awful person. If work by itself were karma yoga, just by being busy and doing a lot of work, I could be a karma yogi, then a person like that would have become free. Why didn't he become free? Because of the mind, because of the mind. So karma yoga, like all yogas, is a mental yoga. So now let me come to another topic within the field, deal with very briefly, who is fit for karma yoga? So karma yoga, anyone who wants to be free is fit for karma yoga. To follow jnana yoga, you have to have some sort of interest in a philosophical approach and impersonal approach, and you have to have some capacity at abstract thinking. And to follow the path of devotion, you have to believe in God. If you don't even believe in God, why would you try to seek to devote yourself to God? You wouldn't. So you have to believe in God. For karma yoga, all you need, you don't need belief in God. You don't need abstract thinking and a philosophical bent or a desire for impersonal reality. All you need is the desire to be free, the recognition that aham baddho vimuktasyam iti yasyasti nischayah. That's a verse early in the Laghu Yoga Vashishta, a text on Jnana Yoga. But in there it says, aham baddho, I am bound, vimuktasyam, I wish to be free, iti yasyasti nischayah, the one who has the desire for that, to be free, who is neither completely ignorant nor completely awake. Such a person is fit for this scripture, the whole verse says. So that is true of karma yoga. I know that things are not what they should be. I know there must be a better state, a higher state that I want to attain. That's all I need to be able to practice karma yoga, because everyone, every moment has to be active, has to be engaged in work. And so I'm already doing the things that a karma yogi does on the physical level. I just have to learn how to change my attitude towards the work, my relationship to the work. And through that, I become a karma yogi. So now, as far as people who are attracted to karma yoga, who try to practice karma yoga, some who are active by nature, they like to be active. And right now, there are many people who are suffering a great deal. Unfortunately, it's a very sad situation for many people, not just the people who are sick, but some people who have had their work taken away from them. They have nothing to do. They're sitting with nothing to do. And that's very difficult for many people. And so some people like to be active. If you tell them to follow the path of Raja Yoga, they find that no, they don't want to do that, because they don't like to just sit still and try to deal with the mind. They'd rather be doing something. And that's good. That's all right. That's fine for karma yoga. Then there's some people who have to live and work in the world. They don't have any choice, but they have to make a living. And so for them, karma yoga is there. Then for the followers of Swami Vivekananda, he said that my followers can follow any of the yogas or any combination of the yogas, but I want everyone to do something of karma yoga. Why? Because karma yoga does several things. One thing karma yoga does is it teaches us to be practical. It teaches us to be practical. It constantly, karma yoga, that is action, constantly tests our metal, our inner metal, our inner state. I've known people who went off to the Himalayas, lived in a cave for years. Yes, I've actually known such people. I stayed with them in a cave in Gangotri. And seen such people who lived in ashramas and caves and so forth, who didn't want to do any work and avoided work. All they would do was beg their food, but otherwise they'd sit in their cave all of the time. And I saw with these people, some who had lived that way for years, they seemed to be very peaceful. They seemed to be very stable and everything. A small thing happened that they weren't expecting, and they would fly into a rage. Because somebody showed up at the door of the cave they weren't expecting, or somebody interrupted something they were doing, and then they would fly off the handle. That tests the mettle of a person. It shows that the person, though sitting in the cave, has not really controlled their mind at all. And so karma yoga is constantly testing you. You sit for meditation at home, everything feels nice, you get in the car, drive to work, somebody cuts you off on the freeway, and suddenly you're done. So karma yoga, engagement in action, constantly tests your mental state. And then karma yoga is the great yoga for developing unselfishness. It's easy in other paths to be unaware of how selfish you have become. But in karma yoga, the very basis of karma yoga is overcoming selfishness, like developing an attitude of service and of love towards, equal love towards all. So all of these are advantages to karma yoga. So, and also, if life itself is to become yoga, and that's what we should aim for, to make life itself yoga, so that everything I do is contributing to my spiritual life. Not just a little time I do japa in the morning, a little time I do japa before going to bed, but the whole of life becomes yoga. Then we need karma yoga, because karma yoga teaches us to make every action yoga, because karma itself is action, and karma yoga is the secret of learning how to turn karma into karma yoga, into yoga. So karma yoga is the great universal yoga. It's the foundation of all of the yogas. So karma yoga yogasya pratishtanam. Karma yoga is the foundation of the other yogas. Sarvesham sadhakanam karma yogasya prayojanam. All sadhakas, all spiritual aspirants have the need for karma yoga. Yasya lesha matra kartritva bhava prayojanam. The person who has the slightest sense of being the doer. Even I'm going to sit and do japa. I'm saying I'm going to sit and I'm going to do japa. There's a problem there. Karma yoga teaches me how to gradually minimize that. So for such people also is needed. Yatra sadhaka sadhana sadhya vidyate tatra prayojanam. Wherever there's a sense of being the sadhaka, practicing a sadhana to attain to the goal, which is called in Sanskrit sadhya. So you have sadhaka, the person doing, sadhana, what you're doing, and sadhya, the goal towards which you're going. If you have that sense, you need karma yoga, because you have a process. That is, you have action. So you need that. Praksiddhe yogi bhakta jnani nam prayojanam. Before perfection, the jnani needs it, the bhakta needs it, and the raja yogi needs the development of karma yoga. Because as I said, even, and as karma yoga says, not me saying, even meditation is karma. So now let me go briefly over a few principles underlying karma yoga, and then how different people practice it. The first thing to know, I've already said, as far as principles, and that is that karma yoga is mental. It's not about doing things. In Karma Yoga, the book Karma Yoga of Swami Vivekananda, he defines karma in the sense of karma yoga, or in a sense that makes karma yoga possible. He says, this is something that you should meditate on for the rest of your life. That's your homework. But your homework, not for tonight, but for the rest of your life. He says, every mental and physical blow that is given to the soul, by which, as it were, fire is struck from it, and by which its own power and knowledge are discovered, is karma. This word being used in its widest sense. Now that's a lot. So let me go over it again. Every mental and physical blow that is given to the soul, that is every physical and mental blow, that is every physical and mental experience, every physical and mental action, by which, as it were, fire is struck from it. So that means that action and experience have the power to strike fire from the soul, just as you strike, the image here is a flint. You strike flint and you get the fire from the flint. Out of this apparent stone, you get the spark of fire. And so every physical and mental blow which is given to the soul, by which fire is struck from it, and by which its own power and knowledge are discovered. So that fire which is struck, is its power and knowledge which is discovered, is karma, this word being used in its widest sense. So why does karma, that is action, why do we use that as the field in which to practice karma yoga? Because karma, action, has the power, action and experience together. Again, karta bhokta, the doer and the experiencer, has the power to strike fire from the soul. Has power to strike fire from the soul, fire in the form of knowledge and power, to manifest your inner power. And so there's no conflict between meditation and karma yoga, because in meditation also we are doing action and we are striking fire from the soul, the fire in the form of knowledge and power. So let me stop there for a moment and say the place of meditation in Karma Yoga. Holy Mother, Sarada Devi, says that without a meditation practice, it's very difficult to keep the rudder of the boat of life going in the proper direction. That is, in Karma Yoga, it's very important, as in the other yogas, because without meditation, it's hard to know that we're going in the right direction. In meditation, I see how much of the mind I have controlled or how little of the mind I have controlled. And so it gives me feedback about the rest of my yoga. If my Karma Yoga is going very deep, then my meditation should also go correspondingly deep. And so meditation gives me feedback about my, my progress in general. So she said it's the rudder of the boat. And for most of us, it's essential for converting karma into Karma Yoga. Because at the time of meditation, we are able to plant ideas deeply into the mind through our spiritual practice. And without that, we find that it's easy just to get involved in work and just to forget the whole purpose of the work. But by keeping a meditation practice, we remind ourselves every day why I'm doing all of this. So now the first important principle to know again is that Karma Yoga is mental and therefore not contrary to meditation. And then the other principles, we come to the attitudes in work. Swami Vivekananda famously said once that wisdom lies in using a tool properly. Now, when I first read that, when I was fairly new in the Ganges monastery, I didn't like that statement at all, because I was surrounded by people in the Ganges monastery who I thought were overly practical. They were only concerned with practical things and weren't interested in even meditation or reading spiritual books. It was just about farm work and getting everything done. And so when I read that, I thought, oh, that's just more of what I've been suffering from here. But then later I came to understand the spiritual connection to what Swami Vivekananda ji was saying. The implication of that wisdom lies in using a tool properly. Tool includes everything. My eyes are tools, my ears are tools, my hands are tools. They're external tools. A book is a tool. The mind is a tool. My emotions are tools. Using a tool properly. So it implies, using it properly implies respect. It implies attention. And it implies self-control. If I have respect, attention, and self-control, then I will use all of my tools properly. And my tools will be aimed at elevating my spiritual life. And so it's a profound advice. What at first I thought was just more of that practical stuff, that don't worry about meditation, don't worry about reading books. We're not here to run a university, we're here to do work and all of that. No, it was profound advice. Holy Mother therefore said, as long as I live, so long may I work. I pray to the Lord, as long as I live, so long may I work, because to work is a delight. Think about that. For most of us, work is a pain. But Holy Mother had come to the point where to work was a delight. And she actually prayed to God, as long as I live, so long may I work. That's a wonderful idea. So another attitude towards work is the idea of yajna, the idea of sacrifice. Yajna, a Sanskrit word which means sacrifice. To see this whole universe as a grand sacrifice. And I must participate in that sacrifice, or else I am stealing from the universe. I'm only taking, I'm not giving back. All of us, to have a healthy relationship to the universe, have to give back to the universe. That's the spirit of yajna, the spirit of sacrifice. I get so many things from the universe, I have to give back, because if I stop the flow of things coming into me and then just stop it there, then I become stagnant. It's by letting the energy of the universe flow into me and then flow back out. And I do that by giving whatever I can give. So that idea of sacrifice is a fundamental part of Karma Yoga. We go beyond even the sense of sacrifice when we come to the point where we feel I don't do anything. But until we come to that, We have to feel that we are contributing something. That's why many older people who get to the point where they can't do anything, the one thing that they suffer from most, besides loneliness, is the feeling of being useless. And so we can be of great service to people just by letting them know that their being, just their company is useful. Because everyone has that sense of a need to be useful. So yajna. Unselfishness is part of the foundational attitude of karma yoga. Once I realize that selfishness is the cause of my attachment and all of my problems, then to gradually become unselfish. That's a big topic in itself, and I won't go on with it now because there's not time. If someone wants to ask more about it in the question and answers, they can. And then, of course, I've already spoken about the other mental attitude, and that is non-attachment. Non-attachment. So unselfishness, non-attachment, the spirit of yajna, and then the respect, attention, and self-control exercised by using a tool properly. So now we have about 10 minutes remaining before we come to question and answers. So let me use that time for talking about different ways of practicing karma yoga. So first, karma yoga in itself, just karma yoga. I don't have any particular interest in God. I'm not philosophical. I'm not interested in realizing Brahman or asking who am I and all of that. But I know that I'm suffering. I know that attachment is the cause of my suffering, and I want to go beyond that. I want to find a way through the world to the other side of the world, through the ocean of samsara to the other side. So just the desire to be free is enough to motivate one in karma yoga. Again, most people will combine karma yoga with devotion or with knowledge or with Raja Yoga, as I'll explain. But it's enough just to know that selfishness and attachment are the cause of my problem. Let me try to become unselfish by expanding my sense of self, by reaching out to others, by learning to consider the joys and sorrows of others as my own, because that will break the wall of selfishness and the practice of attachment, or the habit of attachment. So we have the example, Swami Vivekananda gives in Karma Yoga, of the Buddha. At first, the Buddha is not an obvious example of Karma Yoga, but Swamiji shows why Buddha was a Karma Yogi of this type. That he sought liberation not for himself alone, but he sought liberation for all beings. That was the motivation in his seeking liberation. And in everything, he practiced non-attachment. He didn't believe in God. He didn't even believe in the self. He denied the self, anatmavada, the doctrine of the no self, and no God, no self to the universe, no God, no self to the individual, but just the practice of non-attachment. And so we have the example of someone who attained to freedom in that way. And we have the example of others historically, lesser figures, but still great figures, who also were great people who identified with humanity and served humanity unselfishly, who attained to great and deep wisdom. The people in various fields of life, even people like Dag Hammarskjöld, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and other such people. Abraham Lincoln, who was not religious in a conventional sense, and yet he attained to greatness because of that unselfish search for what it means that all beings are created equal. You find in someone like Martin Luther King, people may say that, well, yes, he had moral foibles and so forth. Well, forget about that. That doesn't matter. Look at the greatness of the man. He was a truly great man, and what made him great? Yes, he believed in God, and he was a preacher, and he was devoted to God. But what made him great was his identification first with the African Americans. They all became his, he was identified with their cause. But then he went beyond that and became identified with humanity itself and sought the welfare of all. And so why did he become great? If you look at some of his speeches, like his I Have a Dream speech on the Washington Mall, when you look at a video of that speech, you see that there was some tremendous power working through him. And those of us who have to give lectures and so forth, because we have experience in giving lectures and things, we can see that something was working through him. He had become bigger than himself. He wasn't just talking off the top of his head. He wasn't just giving platitudes and nice sounding poetic words. No, there was a power that was working through him because he had identified with something which was vast, far bigger than himself. And so through karma yoga, just by identifying with that which is vast, identifying with the world, identifying with humanity, and beyond humanity to existence itself, we can come to karma yoga. So just by seeing the connection between work and the awakening which Swami Vivekananda speaks about of wisdom and power within the soul. Then as Raja Yoga, we can practice karma yoga as an adjunct to Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga being the control of the mind. I can do my work as a way of controlling the mind and of concentrating. Then my work itself becomes a form of pratyahara, bringing the mind under control. And so just by doing work with concentration, with attention, I find that it leads me to the power of meditation. It leads to concentration of mind. It leads to self-control by focusing on the work that I'm doing instead of thinking, oh, after this, I can't wait to go out for a hamburger or something like that. No, it's keeping my mind on what I'm doing. After I finish, do what you want, but let your mind stay with the work. So it leads to a sense of self-control, and it leads to the state of mindfulness, the state of attentive awareness. And so work can be a great means to aid us in the practice of Raja Yoga. And then meditation itself, when we sit for formal meditation, that itself becomes a karma yoga practice. How? How often do we sit for meditation and think, am I getting anywhere? Am I getting any closer? Is anything going to happen? Am I going to experience anything? Why is this taking so long? That means that we're attached to the fruits of our practice. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, Sri Krishna says in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, that yours is the right to action, not to the fruits of action. That means meditation also. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Kids ask in the car. And so in meditation, we ask, am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? No, forget that. Do your practice. Don't think, am I there yet? Mine is to do the practice with as much attention as possible. Let it take a year. Let it take 10 years. Let it take 50 years. Let it take 10 lifetimes. The karma yogi stands in the middle of time and lets the universe whirl around. But I am here. I am here, and I am not attached to the fruits of my action, but I know that if I continue, the fruit has to come eventually. That's all I need to know. Let it come in a year, 10 years, 50 years, a lifetime, 10 lifetimes, doesn't matter. I am standing at the middle of time. Let time stop, but I'm not going to let go. So that is karma yoga according to Raja Yoga. Then in Jnana Yoga, the practice of Jnana Yoga, the identification with consciousness. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I am consciousness itself. I see the body and mind active, but let me step back and watch them. Let them work, let them work. Let me be attentive. But by being attentive, I gradually find that all I need to do is to be attentive. The work itself goes on. I fool myself into thinking, as I said earlier, that I have to control everything. I say, as I've used this example many times in San Diego and here and elsewhere, I say I'm going to walk from here to the lobby here in our center. I don't know how to walk. Nobody knows how to walk. I say I'm going to walk and it just happens. Do you know how you walk? No, nobody knows how they walk. Do you know how you give a speech? Do you know how you speak? You're talking to a friend. You say, I'm talking to a friend. No, you're not talking to your friend. Talking is happening. Do you know how you talk? Do you know how ideas arise in the mind and are translated into speech, and then the control of the breath and the control of the muscles in the throat and the mouth and the tongue and all of the infinitely complex process of speaking? You don't know how you do it. So give up the sense that you're doing it. You don't know how you walk, so give up the sense that you're doing it. And so in Jnana Yoga, you say, I'm consciousness. I just watch. I just watch. I don't know how to do it. It just happens. So you do it, but you know that you're not doing it. It's happening. And then in Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti yoga is the way that most people will follow karma yoga. Not the only way. All of these other ways are good too. So if you like one of the other ways other than bhakti, then do that. But numerically, most people will find that bhakti is the easiest because it's the path of love. And what most people want more than anything is the experience of love. There's nothing so purifying as love. There's nothing so gratifying as love. There's nothing so fulfilling as love. Nothing so unifying as love. That which brings the mind to a point easily. When you fall in love with another human, you find that the mind suddenly becomes concentrated. Suddenly that's all you want to think about. And everything speaks to you of the beloved. And so if we can develop love for God, the same thing happens. Nothing so unifying, nothing so purifying, nothing so satisfying as the experience of love. And so if I can do my work as an offering to God, that's in the beginning. Learn to do my work as an offering of God, to God. So Swami Brahmananda and Swami Prabhavananda, his disciple, used to say that you begin with work and worship. You have to do your work and you also do worship so that you develop a sense of worship. Then you begin to do work as worship. That is, you try, when you're working, you try to do it as an offering. And then eventually work becomes worship. Work is worship. So work and worship in the beginning. Then in the middle stage, work as worship, a practice. And then work is worship. I often give the example of Brother Lawrence, the great French Carmelite monk, who said that in his letters, in the practice of the presence of God and spiritual maxims, he says in his letters, one of his letters, that I have now come to a point where everything I do, even picking up a straw from the ground, I do for the love of God. So does God need you to pick up a straw? No, God doesn't need you to pick. God didn't need Brother Lawrence to pick up a straw. So it's not a question of need. It's that everything becomes so tinged with love. Everything that you do is an act of adoration. Everything that you do is worship. Everything is filled with love. So the very meaning of big things and little things, picking up a straw or giving a lecture to 1,000 people, it doesn't make any difference. It's all the same because everything is done out of love. It's love that gets us up in the morning, love that takes us to bed at night, love that motivates us to do everything that we do. That's the goal of Bhakti Yoga, but Bhakti Yoga combined with Karma Yoga. So in that yoga, that way of following Karma Yoga, we seek to know how to make work into worship. So I could go on for a long time, so I'll stop here because we should have, one short thing I'll say, and then we'll have questions. And that is, there's a fifth way of practicing Karma Yoga, and that is the way taught by Swami Vivekananda, which sort of can include all of the others. But here it is the worship of the divine in all beings, seeing the divine everywhere and worshiping the divine in all beings, or worshiping the self in all beings, seeing all beings in the self and self in all beings, seeing God in all beings and all beings in God. So either way, the worship of the visible God, as Swami Vivekananda used to call it, the worship of the visible God. So, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Swamiji. So at this point, we will be opening it up to questions, and you can do it in two ways. If you want to ask a question yourself, you can go to the participants button down below, open that up, and you'll see on your right-hand side where you can raise your hand. And you can just press raise your hand, and Vikram will call on you. And if you'd like to type in a question, we already have about 30 questions that have been typed in. If you go to the chat box and type in your question, hit return, it'll come to me. So actually, let me just ask a further question on, when I was talking about stages in Karma Yoga,
Yes.
I was implying actually, as you were talking on Bhakti Yoga, work and worship, work as worship, and work is worship. Let's make this a little bit concrete for most of us who are listening to you right now. When we talk about work and worship, what does that mean? Does it mean that we actually do work and alongside do we do our japa? What do we mean by work and worship as a practical way of understanding this?
Well, excuse me, let me get some water first. Work and worship, of course, is just a general beginning level, which means that I don't yet have the sense that what I'm doing is worship. And so I have to do my work. If I'm in the ashram, I have ashram duties. And if I'm in the household, I have household duties. If I'm in the office, I have office duties. I have to work. But my spiritual practice is acts of worship, doing japa and or doing, offering incense, singing hymns, singing bhajans, maybe doing self-inquiry, whatever my spiritual practice is. And so most of us start with having our spiritual life and our work life. They're two parts to our life. And so they're sort of compartmentalized. So from the beginning, what we want to start beginning to do is to remove that compartmentalization so that our work becomes part of our spiritual life. But that takes practice. So one of the most common questions that we hear from people in the beginning of their spiritual life, in the beginning several years of their spiritual life, is that when I'm doing my spiritual practice, I feel good and everything is going well, though I find that maybe I find meditation difficult, but still I feel good doing it. But then I go to work and I lose everything. So that's the stage of work and worship, where I have to go to work and I'm doing my spiritual practice, but I can't yet combine them. So work as worship is when we start consciously trying to remove that wall and making my work part of worship. And so then there are various things I can do, as you suggested. I can do japa while I'm doing work that doesn't require too much mental attention. If you're teaching a mathematics class, you can't do that and do japa at the same time. But when I'm doing something that's not mentally demanding, there are many types of work. I can do japa while I'm doing in the midst of many types of work. And so like in our ashrams, we often talk about, oh, this is good japa work, because it's something that's easy to keep the mind engaged. So by doing japa in the midst of work, if it's something more complicated, by beginning the work with a prayer, with an offering to God, I do this as service to you, and finishing with, I offer it to you, Mother, may everything that I do be an offering to you. So in the middle, I had to pay attention to the work because it was mentally demanding, but at least at the beginning and at the end, and maybe sometimes in the middle, I can remember, well, this is all for you, and then return to paying attention to what I'm doing. So I'm trying to inject the idea of this is part of my spiritual practice. So in that stage of work as worship, it's very important in our meditation that we have some period of our meditation. It can be just for 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute of our meditation, take out to consciously relate my work to my spiritual life. That is, there are various ways of doing it, but to offer my work, everything that I do, to God mentally, to pray that may I see everything that I do as worship of you. Let my walking be circumambulating your presence in all things. Let my speech be praise of you. Even if I'm speaking to other people, let me at least think of it as coming as praise of you. Let everything that I do be free. So in some way, to emphasize the spiritual nature of work in my meditation, so that when I actually am engaged in work, gradually that idea begins to take over. And
so Marge, just to follow up then, so on this work as worship, we had a physician who this morning who said, I want to ask this question, Swami, said that I try to inject the divine into my work. And he's saying, so when patients come in, and sometimes it's very challenging. I have patients that are very rude. It's hard to see God in them. How do I see the divine in people that are very frustrating, that I don't get along with, that I don't like? Is the definition of God that God comes to us in the beautiful form, in forms that are sattvic, in forms that are gentle, or is God coming masquerading in various types of forms? Help us with this. How do we deal with the divine? And is the divine only limited to certain ways? Or is the divine everything? But how do we deal with the divine in the angry ways?
God comes to us even in the form of COVID-19. Really. There's the name for the Divine Mother, Karunamoi, the mother who is made of compassion. So now some of us jokingly say Karunamoi. she who is made of coronavirus. So coming to an actual practicable point, how to make this a practice. Yes, the divine comes to us in all situations, and so what the difficulty comes because we think that when a patient, say in the case of a doctor, and this can be extended to any kind of work, but keep it restricted for ease of discussion. A patient comes to me, I'm a doctor, and a patient comes to me, a very nice patient who's thankful for what I do. That's very easy to be grateful and to think, oh, what a wonderful chance I had to serve. That's easy. Anyone can do it. What I have to learn to do is to deal with every situation that God presents to me, the Divine Mother presents to me, because every situation has an opportunity within it. Behind every situation, there's the loving face of God hiding behind every situation. I have to learn how to see that in the midst of every situation, not just the good situations. If it were just the good situations, all of us could quickly become yogis. So again, it doesn't mean that finding the face of God in everyone doesn't mean that when a person who's abusive or whatever comes to me, that I have to be so emotional and say, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, oh, you're so wonderful. No, it doesn't mean that, but it means that I have to have, towards all beings, I have to have a certain detachment so that I don't get emotionally involved with them, but at the same time to have a generalized sense of love for all beings, which can include even the difficult people. So it's very important to understand, because this was very difficult for me when I was a young monk to understand this, that being loving towards all beings does it to all people in particular. It's much more easier to be loving towards a dog or a cat than to many people. So being loving towards all people doesn't mean that I suddenly become a victim of the neighborhood bore who wants to waste all of my time by talking about things that I'm not at all interested in. No, it doesn't mean that at all. Being loving means that's a generalized feeling I have towards all. And let me deal with that person in a way which is respectful, but which may be firm, so that all of my time is not wasted. If a person is abusive towards me, then part of my worship will be to say no, not to take on abuse from other people. Taking on abuse from others is not yoga. That's weakness. And so to be able to stand up and say, well, no, please don't do that here. Please, no, I won't accept that. Please, you are not welcome here. Whatever it may be that we have to do to protect a situation or something. But even that we can do with a background sense of love for everything, and even recognizing that as God coming to me in this form. And my way of dealing with this situation God has brought to me, or that God has come to me in, is to protect myself, because I know that being abused does no one any good. It only encourages the abuser to be more abusive. And so, like that. So we have to be subtle about it.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you. Let's go ahead, Vikram. Let's get a live person to ask a question. And when Vikram calls you, please introduce yourself and also state where you're from, where you're at right now.
Thank you, Swamiji. The next question is from Pepe, who's joining us from Guadalajara in Mexico. Pepe?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Pranam, Swamiji. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, you're entitled to the action, but not the fruits of action.
Yes.
Actually, that's a bar set very high.
Yes.
Every time I try to think about that, it brings me back and say, well, once again, I'm looking for the fruit of action. So that kind of set you back a little bit. And what I've done is it's to choose from perfection or uniqueness. Could you comment a little bit of that? I found uniqueness so much easier than perfection.
Yes. So that's probably the hardest thing to understand about karma yoga, That is the idea that let me act for the sake of the action itself, not for the fruits of the action. Because all of us work because we're seeking fruits of action. All of us work because we have some motivation. I get up in the morning because I have to have things to do. I go to meditate because I want to realize God. That's a motivation. Hoping for a fruit in spiritual practice. I go to work. So as I often say, if I go to work and at the end of the week, the boss gives me a paycheck and I say, no, I'm just working for the sake of the work, not for the fruits of the action. You please keep the check. The boss will be very happy, but I will soon find myself in trouble because I can't pay my bills. So working for the sake of the work and not for the fruits of action seems impossible because all of us do things out of motivation. So the best way to understand that is that yes, when you go to work and the boss pays you at the end of the week or the month, yes, you take the payment. But during that week when you're working, don't spend your time thinking about the paycheck. There's a bumper sticker that many people used to have, especially in California, when bumper stickers were more popular. It said, I owe, so off to work I go. Most people work only because they owe money and they need money to pay bills. So no, let me work because I have to work. And the fruits will come, but let me not dwell on that. Let me dwell on the work itself. And one last thing, let me say, because again, it's a very difficult topic, I understand. Once in San Diego, a great Swami, a disciple of the Holy Mother, direct disciple of the Holy Mother, Swami Atmarupananda, had come from India and was staying with me for 5 days. One day we went out for sightseeing and I brought him back. It was a Tuesday morning. I brought him back at lunchtime to give him lunch, and a devotee named Antoinette was there cleaning the public parts of the ashram. So I told him, Maharaj, this is Antoinette. She comes every Tuesday to clean the ashram. She can't come for classes and lectures, but this is the way she keeps contact and the way she gives service. And she's done this for years. So the Swami went up to her and said, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. So happy to meet you and so glad to hear about your service to the ashram. But always remember, it's not what you do that's important. It's who you are becoming through the doing that's important. And that is the secret of karma yoga and the secret of working for the sake of the work and not for the fruits. That is, let me do the work in such a way that the power and knowledge of the soul are awakened, and that I am becoming a good, truly good, not goody-goody person, but a truly good person, so that the powers of my soul are awakened and manifested. And so then I learn how to work for the sake of the work, because the work has the power to bring that out. If I work only for the paycheck, then most of my life is wasted, because I'm only waiting for a paycheck. The paycheck comes, I spend it, and then it's gone. What have I gained? Nothing. But by doing work for the sake of the transformation that work can bring about in me, through learning attention, through learning self-control, through learning sacrifice, through learning selflessness, then I find it's done great good to me.
Thank you, Swamiji. We have a question from Rita who asked, does the caste system, racism, etc., originate from attachment to group identity? In which case, karma yoga would be solution. But it could be that we are ignorant of our oneness as human beings, in which case, jnana yoga is the solution. What is the right diagnosis, and hence, what is the right treatment?
Okay, there was only one word I missed, but it was an extremely important word. Near the beginning.
Does the caste system, racism, etc., originate from attachment to group identity?
Okay.
In which case, karma yoga would be solution.
Okay. So both are great helps, karma yoga and jnana yoga. So yes, all of us have a group identity. We want to grow beyond that, but all of us have some group identity. And it doesn't mean that if I attain to perfection that I am forgetful of all of that. Yes, I know that that's not who I am, but I know that this body still belongs to groups. But what happens in spiritual life is that we become bigger than the identity. When I realize who I really am, or if I realize myself as a child of God, so through Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, then I know that all of these self-definitions, those are just part of the play of life and they don't mean anything. That I am beyond gender. I'm neither male nor female. I'm neither homosexual, heterosexual, nor bisexual. I'm not white or black. This body, when I come back from a high state, I may still see that this body appears white, but it doesn't matter to me. It no longer separates me from others because I know this is not who I am. This is just something which is part of a false identity. And so I've learned that my true identity, which is free from all of those definitions. So Jnana Yoga helps in that way. Karma Yoga helps in the sense that I learn to love and to accept all. My being has become large. So if somebody asks me, what was your ancestry? Or say, let me not use myself because I'm obviously still working on myself, still a project to be completed. But say Sri Ramakrishna, somebody asked him, where in India were you from? He would say, well, this is from Bengal, or this was from the village of Kamarpukur. He hadn't forgotten that his body was born in Kamarpukur, but he knew that he was the universe itself. And so through Karma Yoga, I learned to identify with the vast. Nalpe sukhamasti. Within the small, there's no happiness. Bhumayava sukham. The vast alone is happy, is blissful. And so by identifying with the universe, these divisions no longer mean anything to me.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you. Wonderful. Vikram, let's go to our next live question.
The next question, Swamiji, is from Cindy. Cindy?
Hello.
Hi, Cindy. Where are you calling from?
Swamiji.
Hello, Cindy.
From Mexico.
Qué bueno. Dígame.
Hello. Qué bueno. Swamiji, you mentioned that we are takers. We take everything from the universe, which is right. But we have to give back. So what we should give back and how to give back?
Yes, good question. So we don't want to be just takers. We receive so much from the universe, but we have to give back. So how do we give back? It depends on who we are, what our temperament is, and what we have to give. So one thing is a person, for instance, who has wealth. They can give in the support of the poor and so forth. They can give. Those who have time can give time. Those who can't do anything else because of their circumstances, either poverty or restricted movement or whatever, then they can just think well of others, send out thoughts of goodwill. So let me give a short example to show how little it is that we need to do to be effective as givers. When I lived in San Diego, I used to go to a bank downtown for monetary transactions, depositing donations and taking out cash for expenses, etc. There was a parking lot, a small parking lot that belonged to the bank itself. And to go in, you had to pass a gate. There was a man who was there at the gate every day, and he would give you a ticket, and you'd go and park, and then you get do your business at the bank. This man was a wonderful man. I've remembered the rest of my life. This was 35 years ago that I knew him, but I've remembered him the rest of my life because every time I went to the bank, which was at least once a week for years, he was always the same, always smiling, always friendly, not just with me, but with everyone. And when you went in, he always had a good word to say for you. And when you left, he had a good word for you. And obviously, no one is happy all of the time. So he must have had bad days. He must have had days when he wasn't feeling well or when things had not gone well for him. But he always did that simple, very simple work with a sense of service and a sense of trying to make others' day brighter just by giving them a good word. And so just by that, I would come away from the bank every time feeling better and feeling better about the world, to think, here's a man who can't go home and brag to his kids. Do you know what Daddy does? Daddy he takes tickets at the parking lot for the bank. No, nothing he could brag to his kids about. Very simple work. And yet he was always friendly and kind and helpful in any way he could be. So even that is service. So every work can be converted into service. So giving back means giving back love, giving back kindness, giving back goodness, giving back material things if we can, sharing, etc. Like one of the wonderful things in Mexico is that nobody will, in front of another person, nobody will eat something without offering to the other person. That's just as natural as breathing in Mexico. That itself is service. That itself is goodness. That itself is kindness. In a country like America, I should say the United States, because Mexico is America too. But in the United States, people don't think twice about eating in front of other people and not sharing. In Mexico, that's unthinkable. So,
thank you, Swamiji. Our next question is from Washington, D.C., Meda, who asked, Swamiji, I've been experiencing trouble to focus on my karma since childhood, whether it be my studies or work. Even when I meditate, I find myself getting so lost in thought before I realize it. What would you suggest to gain focus in the pursuit of my karma yoga?
very good question. And first of all, don't feel that you are unusual because of that difficulty. That's the most common difficulty. For some people, it's a little more, some people a little less, but everyone has that problem. One of my teachers in India said, even a brilliant person with wonderful qualities of character like Einstein, if he had turned consciously to the spiritual life, he would have faced the and so that is the most common problem people have. Again, for some people it's a little more, for some people a little less. So what to do? My suggestion is that if you learn some form of mindfulness practice, now there's not time here, of course, for me to teach such a practice, and it wouldn't be appropriate to a general audience, but I have given retreats on mindfulness, but to practice some form of mindfulness, because that gives you the power of attention. And that can be done either through mindfulness meditation or even in something like the martial arts, where you have to learn to pay attention to your movements and what you're doing with the body. And then that mindfulness can be extended to your work. But the main thing, mindfulness helps us in meditation, it helps us in work, it helps us in everything.
Swamiji, if I were to follow up with that then, so in one sense, you're teaching us the power of attention, but then what can we practice to practice the power of detachment, so that when we're many of us are stuck at home with the coronavirus and we're constantly harping on all the negative things that are going on. How can we take our mind and detach from these thoughts?
That also, one way is the mindfulness itself. That's not the only way, but one way is mindfulness itself, because attention doesn't mean attached attention, it means detached attention. And so by learning to pay attention, you're learning to make your awareness a container, so that what's happening is you're just lightly containing that which happens. You're not attaching to it. And so that's the very nature of mindfulness, is just to be aware without getting involved in that which you're aware of. Just hold your awareness like a field in which whatever is happening is happening. So that cuts through attachment, and it cuts through daydreaming. The problem that you're describing, which many people are having trouble with now, to an unusual degree because of the pandemic, is a form of daydreaming, but a form of daydreaming driven by fear and anxiety and the news cycle, which keeps us excited and everything. And so the mind just can't let go of thinking of the possibilities and what's going on and all of that. So learning mindfulness is a great help. But another way, I said that that's not the only way, another way is to, if we have a practice like japa, to keep coming back to japa, keep coming back to it. The problem with the japa is that even japa can become mechanical and we're thinking about other things while we're going om, 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 and thinking about going to the store or thinking about coronavirus or thinking about whatever. But the value of japa is once we get the hang of doing it regularly, the mind is still going on, so you can keep bringing the mind to it. And it's still there going on, and you bring the mind back to it. And the mind goes away, then you bring it back. And so that also cuts through. What we want to learn, and it takes years of practice. I don't say that to scare people, but to get you ready for the long haul. It takes years of practice to get over this habit of constant daydreaming, where the mind is always just playing tapes. And so that a large part of spiritual practice is learning how to get out of that. Mindfulness is one way, paying attention to japa. When it becomes mechanical, then keep putting your mind back on it, making it conscious. Learning to pray, because you can't pray and daydream at the same time.
Thank you, Swamiji. Vikram, can we have our next live question?
Next question is from Nidish, who's joining us from Houston. Nidish is unmuted.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for the speech, Maharaj. I'm from Houston too, and I visited the ashram quite a few times. Had the opportunity of meeting him. So my question was, if I had to summarize it in one line, it is the role of initiative in Karma Yoga. So what is the right attitude that we could have for aspects such as a sense of achievement and competition, a sense of competition that we may have with other people, and comparison? Because I'm a student, I'm a graduate student right now, and then this is something that's always in my mind. I'm always comparing myself with someone else, and then I'm trying to see if I'm enough or if I'm good enough and things like that. So but anyways, my work is creative in its nature, so initiative plays a huge role in me progressing and doing my work. So I was wondering how is the right way of thinking about it?
Yes, that's a very good question. So, excuse me. So first, let me say that you consider yourself fortunate if you have work that you are interested in, work that is creative and work that's engaging. So not everyone has that blessing. Some people have to do work which is very boring, which they don't like, but they have to do it anyway. Karma yoga can be practiced equally in either situation. But if you have work that you like, that also is good for karma yoga, because you find that it's easy to engage the mind in it. And it's easy to use it as a way of controlling the mind by engaging the mind. As far as the elements of competition and all of that, and comparison competition, that is natural, especially when we're young. It doesn't mean that that's what we want to stay with. It means that all of us, when we're young, and young means up to our 20s, that we're trying to figure out who we are, and part of the way we figure out who we are is by comparing with others. And so that's a natural process. But as yogis and as karma yogis, we want to begin to minimize that, to realize that whatever I am and however I am, I'm okay. To learn, and this is extremely important, to learn to accept this, my body and mind, as my raw material. And so it doesn't matter what this raw material is, this is what I have to work with, and I'm going to do the best I can. And in that way, just taking this as my raw material and working with it, then I don't have to worry about other people. Gradually, a sense of confidence will come where you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And both are okay. When I don't know something, it doesn't matter. The problem in modern life is that we're told we have to sell ourselves. And so we have to constantly pretend to be more than we are, and to avoid people finding out who we really are, because we're afraid we won't live up to what we're supposed to be. So let me realize that what I know, I know. What I don't know, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't have to pretend to know things I don't know, and I don't have to be shy about the things that I do know. Because again, I've learned to accept this as my raw material. It's like a potter receiving clay from the mail order. It comes to your door and you're just beginning to be a potter. You haven't thrown a pot yet, but you want to get into it. And you open up the package and you find it was just wet, cold mud. What is this? I want something to make beautiful pots out of. Well, that's what you make beautiful pots out of. That's your raw material. So this is your potter's clay. And so be confident in who you are, and know who you are, and be who you are. And then you can be comfortable in your own skin. And then you won't need to compare yourself with others. So again, some comparison is always going to be there, but it doesn't become a botheration in your life. So let's see, comparison, the competition, and you realize that let me do the best that and this I'll end so we can get more questions. I'll end on this note. The wonderful thing about the original idea of the Boy Scouts was that Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have been thereafter were taught to compete against themselves. Competition is a part of life, and competition is uncomfortable. And so young people have to learn how to deal with competition. But the best type of competition is competing against myself. Let me see if I can better myself. So instead of thinking of competing with other people, let me compete with myself. Let me better myself. This is what I can do now. Let me learn to do better. And then it's not pushing other people aside to push myself forward, but pushing myself up.
Thank you, Swamiji. Vikram, can we have another question from the live audience?
Absolutely, Swamiji. The next question is from Soma, who is joining us from Boston.
Good.
Pranam Maharaj. Pranam. Maharaj, my question is regarding the Karma Yoga you have talked about. So you're talking that our thoughts also have Karma Yoga, and by physically also we are doing Karma Yoga. So I want to understand which one is influencing which. Is my thought influencing my physical work, or is my physical work influencing my thought?
Both are influencing each other. The first impulse comes from thought. That's the most important. But as we know from medicine, as well as psychology, as well as from ordinary experience, the state of my body can affect my mind, and the state of my mind can affect my body. And so the body and mind are influencing each other. And to give an example that applies to more direct or somewhat to Karma Yoga, we find that on a day that I'm not feeling very well, if I go around moping with a sad look on my face and everything, then I not only make myself sad, but I make other people sad too. If I make an effort and just try to smile, just to be pleasant, not to be a hypocrite, pretending I'm something I'm not, but just because I don't want to make other people sad. If I try to smile, I find that my own mood begins to be raised just by the act of smiling, because the physical act of smiling is associated with a happy state of mind. So by changing the physical, I influence the mental. And by the same process, if I'm not feeling well sometimes, and I've done this many times, and many people do it, it's nothing that I have a special power for, when I'm not feeling well, but I have something that I have to do, just by saying, look, I can't afford to not feel well right now, I've got to get something done. Then suddenly I find that I can put the body in a state where it feels okay, even though it wasn't feeling okay before. And so the mind can influence the state of the body can influence the state of the mind. And that's because, this is a more philosophical point that would be difficult for some people to believe, but the body is more mental than it is physical. They've actually found that neurophysiologists, that there's a point in the brain that if you stimulate with a probe, the perception of the body disappears, even though you see everything else around you, but the perception of the body disappears. And so the body and the mind are intimately connected to each other. But eventually we discover that the mind is even more important than the body. And that's why, and I'll end with this, that's why a person like Stephen Hawking could have such terrible debility, physical debility, and yet a brilliant mind.
Thank you, Swamiji. And the next question here is that Swami Vivekananda encouraged the combination of all the yogas, whereas Sri Ramakrishna said that Bhakti yoga was the path, not karma yoga. Kindly clarify.
Yes, a good, very good question. So there we presented with an apparent contradiction. Because Sri Ramakrishna was the teacher of Swami Vivekananda. He was the avatara, and he said one thing, and Swamiji says something else. And then it's further complicated by the fact that the Holy Mother said, and Sri Ramakrishna before he passed away said, that Sri Ramakrishna was speaking through Swamiji. So the Holy Mother said everything that Naren does, it's Sri Ramakrishna doing through Naren. So when Swamiji said that the combination of the 4 yogas is best, that, at least according to Holy Mother and according to Sri Ramakrishna himself, that was Sri Ramakrishna speaking through Swamiji. So how do we make sense of that? I'll give you my answer. If you ask 3 other Swamis, you may get 3 other answers. I don't know, but I'll give you my answer. Sri Ramakrishna spoke about bhakti being the path for the Kali Yuga. I think because primarily one, he was speaking to devotional people. It was the audience he was speaking to. He was speaking to a Bengali audience of people that had been brought up to value devotion. Secondly, I think he emphasized bhakti because he knew that the majority of people in the world, the numerical majority, would find bhakti to be the easiest. But then when you find Swami Vivekananda, he taught jnana to one and all. He taught all 4 yogas, but you find him teaching from the Ashtavakra Samhita, the Avadhuta Gita, to ordinary people, ordinary audiences, teaching the highest knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna wouldn't allow any of his other disciples to read the Ashtavakra Samhita, only Naren. But Naren taught it to one and all. So why? I think it was because Swamiji realized that and he said actually, that the age, though he didn't tie all of this together, he said that the age, don't you see, the age of esoteric religion has ended. Meaning that the age when you could protect people from certain truths, that's no longer possible. Because you can go to any bookstore anywhere in the world and find books on any religious tradition. Nothing is hidden anymore. And so in Sri Ramakrishna's time, he could protect those who had a devotional nature from others. Those who had a nature of knowledge, he could keep them in a separate group. Those who were monastic, he would teach privately. Those who were non-monastic, he would teach in a different way. But Swamiji realized that the age of segregation of religious teaching into esoteric groups, that was no longer possible. He also realized that the present age was going to bring tremendous turmoil, like the COVID-19. Not just this, there were world wars, there were other wars, there's so many problems we're going through, and the sign of future problems coming towards us now also. He realized that the modern age was bringing great difficulties, and what people needed was to stand on the strength of the self, the Atman. Just like Sri Krishna in the Gita. Sri Krishna teaches all 4 yogas in the Gita, but what does he teach first? First, he teaches the knowledge of the self in chapter 2. He teaches the knowledge of the self to Arjuna. Because Arjuna was on the battlefield facing difficulty, he had to stand on the glory and the eternity and the deathlessness of the self in order to face the battlefield. Then he teaches him other things, including devotion. But first, the knowledge. So Swami Vivekananda first emphasized knowledge more than anything else he taught, because people need to know the glory of the self. But then, in time, it will be found that probably the majority of people will still find bhakti to be the easiest. But Swamiji wanted even bhakti to be founded on the conviction that I am the divine self, and I'm a devotee of God. I practice devotion, but I am the pure, eternal, deathless self. And so I myself offer myself to the infinite light of God, which is myself. So my devotion becomes founded in that knowledge. And so Swamiji said that the 4 yogas are important because they're 4 parts to 4 aspects to our personality that need to be involved in the spiritual life. So, and then one last thing let me say is that Swamiji was Sri Ramakrishna's mouthpiece to the world. Sri Ramakrishna, in his own teaching, he taught select groups of people, what was best for this particular group of people. But Swamiji was teaching the whole world for ages to come. And that was Sri Ramakrishna's teaching to the world at large.
Thank you, Swamiji. Vikram, can we have the next question from a live audience?
The next question is from Anjali, who's joining us from San Diego.
Hello.
Anjali, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Anjali, I hear you.
Yeah, Swamiji, I have two questions. My first question is, in the world of management, result orientation is very important.
What
So,
orientation? What orientation?
Result orientation. So how can managers practice karma yoga without expecting results of their karma?
Ah, yes. Well, what you do when not expecting results doesn't mean that you don't try to do your best. Karma yoga means that, as Swami Brahmananda used to say, karma yoga begins with an intense respect for the work that you're doing. And when you try to do, a karma yogi tries to do the best because it's through giving one's best in everything that I do, whether it's washing dishes or managing an enterprise. By doing the best, I am becoming a better person. I am improving my own abilities and skill and understanding and all of that. And so I'm improving myself that way. And so doing karma yoga doesn't mean not caring about what happens. It means that I realize I have no control over success and failure. If I do my best, chances are it will come out good, but it doesn't guarantee it will come out good. I can do my best, and sometimes what I do fails. So let not failure undo me, whether I'm in the management field or in any other field. Sri Krishna says in the Gita over and over again, siddhya siddhyo samokritva, making success and failure the same. Labha labho, jaya jayo, attainment and non-attainment, conquest and failure. Make all of that the same. It doesn't mean don't care about what happens. It means do the best that you can and then leave the results to God or to nature. If you're God-oriented, then leave the results to God. If you have trouble with the concept of God, then leave it to nature. But karma yoga means doing the best you can, but not being elated by success and not being depressed by failure, because that I have no control over. All I can do is my best.
Perfect. Yeah, that satisfies. My second question, Swamiji, question is, if the desire for freedom, if that is the goal of karma yoga, then isn't it true that all karma is done with that fruit of action in your mind?
Yes, but the difference is that is a motivation which destroys all other motivations. It's a motivation which destroys all others. It's true that when you attain to freedom, you find that there was never any bondage. And so even the desire for freedom and the concept of freedom and bondage, that all disappears. But along the way, at present, and it has to have some motivation or we don't even have the energy to do anything. And so other lower motivations are replaced by the all-consuming motivation of attaining to freedom. And once that is attained, then even that disappears. So as Sri Ramakrishna said in context of bhakti, when someone said, well, isn't the desire for God, isn't that just another desire? Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, that also is a desire, but that's a desire which destroys all other desires. And so the motivation of freedom is a motivation which destroys all other motivations. And eventually even that disappears of itself. We don't have to get rid of it. It just dissolves.
Vikram, another live question?
Yes, Swamiji, this is, next question is from Prabir. Prabir, you're up, sir.
Yeah, I'm here. So, Maharaj, Pranam.
Yes.
I'm from Mount Prospect, Illinois. So my question was, you said that the basic reason for the purpose of karma yoga is freedom, but my understanding wasn't it for chitta shuddhi or mind so that I can be ready to meditate, and for jnana yoga. And I have a second part question is that can I combine meditation with Karma Yoga, or for example, Yapa or something like that with Karma Yoga?
Yes, yes. So for the first question first, that's a very good question, because the traditional idea of Karma Yoga, traditional means the idea of the great acharyas, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, was that Karma Yoga was just for Chitta Shuddhi. It does not lead to liberation, just for Chitta Shuddhi. Once you, that is purity of the mind, for those who don't know the term. It leads to purity of mind. Once you have that, then you can practice Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and those will lead you to liberation. But Karma Yoga is only to purify the mind so that you can practice other yogas, which are the great yogas. But Sri Krishna in the Gita does not say that. He says that through action alone, great sages have attained to God, have attained to illumination in the past. And Swami Vivekananda, again in modern times, said the same as Sri Krishna did. And so you find in the great middle part of classical Hinduism, it was conceived that Karma Yoga was only for purifying the mind so that you could perform higher yogas. But Sri Krishna and Swami Vivekananda, on the two ends of Indian history, the beginning and the end, say no, the Karma Yoga itself can take us to illumination. And so, and that's because Karma Yoga doesn't need to end just with Chitta Shuddhi. It can go to the point where we surrender the very idea of kartritva, of being an agent of action. So that when that is gone, then karma itself is gone. Karma, the performance of karma, depends on the sense of being an agent. When the sense of agenthood is gone, either by devotion or knowledge through Karma Yoga, then we're free. And then the second part of your question, can we practice meditation and like japa and also Karma Yoga? Yes. First of all, we can practice our meditation with an element of Karma Yoga, both by being non-attached to the fruits of my meditation. Let me just go on practicing the best I can and not worry about how far I'm getting. Let me just do the best I can. Another thing is, I can practice my meditation and send out thoughts of goodwill towards all beings everywhere. And in that, I'm practicing mental Karma Yoga, mental service of all beings by sending out good thoughts. And let me read a brief quotation from a Christian mystic that I brought with me. It's about the use of the name of Jesus, which was used as a mantra in Eastern Orthodox Church. He says, the name of Jesus is an instrument, a method of transfiguration, that is transforming myself. Uttered by us, it helps us to transfigure nature, to transform nature, that is the outside world also. The material universe whispers secretly the name of Jesus, that is, it whispers the divine name, whatever the mantra is, the divine name. And it belongs to the religious ministry of each Christian. It belongs to every spiritual sadhaka. To voice this aspiration, to pronounce the name of Jesus, to pronounce the mantra, let's say, over the elements of nature, over the stones and the trees, flowers and fruits, the mountains and the ocean, to give fulfillment to the heart of things, to provide the response to this long, mute and unconscious expectation. That is the reaching of all of nature towards the divine. By pronouncing the holy name, Omkara, or any other mantra over nature, even mentally, we're giving voice to this aspiration of all of nature. We can also transfigure the animal world. We will invoke over each of the animals the name, the mantra, restoring to them their pristine dignity, which so often we have forgotten. But most of all, it is in relation to mankind that the name, the sacred name, helps us to perform a ministry of transfiguration. The mantra is a concrete and powerful means to transfigure people in their most profound and divine reality. These men and women that we meet on the street, in the factory, at the office, and above all, who are irritating and uncongenial, let us go to them with the mantra in our hearts and on our lips. Let us pronounce silently over them this name, which is their true name. Let us name them with this name in a spirit of adoration and service. We can thus transform the world as far as it is within our power. So it's etc.
Thank you, Swamiji. Just we'll have time for a couple more questions. I'm going to give you a question that was texted in. And this one is, I'm in the middle of a very difficult legal custody battle. How do I make it a spiritual experience?
Yes, that's a very good question because whether it's a very difficult custody battle or anything where we're in a real difficult situation where very important things are at stake. Then we have to learn how to meet every situation. Karma yoga, part of the secret of karma yoga is learning to take life as it comes to us. Life doesn't come as we want it to be. Life comes as it comes. And sometimes it's pleasant things come, many times difficulties come. So in karma yoga, we have to learn that every experience that comes to me is an opportunity for me to grow, an opportunity for me to practice my spiritual sadhana, my spiritual practice. And so in something like a custody battle, or something like a fight with a deadly illness that they were suffering from or whatever, or in a divorce or whatever it is, that is a difficult thing that's threatening the very security of our lives and the lives of those that we love. Then to learn to take everything, to do the best that I can in every situation, but always to remember, no matter how difficult it is, because our own well-being is dependent on remembering this, to remember that I cannot control the outcome. I can do the best that I can do, but the outcome, the fruits of the action are not mine to determine. All I can do is the best that I can do. So let me give my best to every circumstance, not because I think I can control it and make it come out the way I want it to. I can't. That's not given to us. So even if we want it, we can't do it. It's just not possible. It's not in the nature of things. But by doing the best that I can, then chances are that it will come out better than otherwise it would, of course, naturally. But also, we are growing in the process. But we have to do it to the best of our capacity with the knowledge that whether it's successful or unsuccessful, that's not up to me. And I will let it go whichever way it comes, but I'm going to do the best that I can.
Thank you, Swamiji. Let's have one more live question. Vikram?
Yes, Swamiji, we have a whole host of people that have been waiting patiently, and we apologize if we haven't been able to get to everybody.
Yes.
This next question is from Ram Gopal.
Yes, Swamiji.
Yes,
Namaste, Swamiji. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, so Swamiji, so my question is basically this. So that I actually came across I can't recollect, but I came across this a few days back about how having a sense of control is an important element of like happiness in life. So having a essential sense of control. So from
yes, it sounds like I'm saying just the opposite, right? So well, there are many things like that where there's a limited truth to what they're saying, having a sense of control in my life, because if I feel that everything is out of control, it's true, I can't be happy. But to think that I can control everything also is going to lead me surely to frustration, because we can't control everything in our lives. So that's an impossibility. So recognizing that's an impossibility. At the same time, feeling that nothing is under control and anything can happen and who knows what's going to happen, then I feel helpless and I feel like I'm a victim of circumstances. So both are true. But the spiritual solution to that is to recognize that things are under control, but they're not under the control of my ego. One of the difficult things to understand, but eventually we come to see it if we think about it and examine our experience, is that every experience that comes to me is meant for me. And when I see that every experience, good and bad, happy and sad, every experience that comes to me is offering me a personalized opportunity. The universe comes to me in a strangely personalized way. It comes just for me, because each of us is seeing our own view of the universe, and the universe is reflecting back to us that which we need. So when I see that, then I don't feel the need to control everything, because I see that the universe and me are in an intimate conversation, and the experiences coming to me are meant for me. And so what I need to do is to learn to respond the best that I can to the circumstances, whatever they are, good and bad, happy and painful. Learn to respond the best I can. And then I find that I'm in tune with the inner nature of the universe. And then everything comes out in a way that makes me, elevates my, my being, elevates my mind, elevates my heart, makes me a better person. Because I've understood that the universe is intimately connected to me as it is to every other person. And so then I don't feel that just random things are happening. This COVID virus is killing people all around me, and who knows what's happening, what will happen to me and everything. No, let me exercise caution. Let me do the things I need to do. But nothing will happen to me except that which is meant for me. And if it is sickness or something, if it's sickness with COVID-19, then let me deal with that. But chances are that's not meant for me. It won't come to me. And so let me just take the precautions that I need to take. And beyond that, not allow myself to get worked up in fear, to realize that I need to have faith in myself, my own capacity, but I also have to have faith in the universe. And if I believe in God, faith in God. These three faiths all of us need. That the universe is not doing random things to me. That the universe comes to me because of a process of karma where the experiences coming to me are the experiences I need in order to learn and to grow. Then I won't feel that need, I have to control everything, because I feel that, no, it's a dance between me and the universe, and we are partners.
Well, thank you, Swamiji, and thank you, everyone. I'm sorry for those that have questions, but guess what? We're in luck. Swamiji will be with us 2 more times in the course of this Vedanta course session. So you can ask him your questions at that time as well. Just a few announcements. Next Wednesday, we're going to have Swami Atmarupananda talk about the path of self-inquiry. So Jnana Yoga. That again will be at the same time, and we will send out the emails and the password links on Monday. So just please tune in to get those emails. Secondly, that if you want to, we have a sadhana session on Saturdays here where we do a guided worship, where you can follow with the guided worship, doing it yourself, and also a guided meditation by Swami Satchidanandaji. That begins at 7:00 a.m. Pacific Coast Time, USA. And if you want to get the link to that, go to the San Diego Vedanta.org website. Finally, one last thing. Do you know that Swami Atmarupananda, Eckhart Tolle, and Oprah Winfrey are going to be in the same forum? They are going to be all speaking in the same play in a workshop or a call to unite. And let me just put this up here, and Swami can explain what's going to be happening here. 1 second. Let me share this with you guys. Some exciting news. So hold on 1 second. Here we go. Okay. Swami, would you like to share with us what's happening here now in this call to unite?
Yes, the Call to Unite is a program which will be 24 hours. In Greenwich Mean Time, it will be from 12 midnight till 12 midnight on May 2nd. That means East Coast time, 8 p.m. on the 1st to 8 p.m. on the 2nd. Central time, 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. and so on. It'll be available around the world through various media, YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, Hulu, Zoom. So you can sign up and get information about it at unite.us. That is unite.us. There will be many of us participating, as Swami said, Oprah Winfrey, Julia Roberts, Eckhart Tolle, President George Bush, Quincy Jones, Yo-Yo Ma, Naomi Campbell, my friends, the Helminskis, and many more people. So the purpose is to encourage people and to also be a voice of praise and thanksgiving to the people who are working so hard to provide for us at this time, the medical workers, the grocery store workers, the postal workers, and so on. And so rather than go on with a description, I ask you just to go to the website, unite.us, and sign up there. It costs nothing. It just means that they will send you information on how to connect.
Thank you, Swamiji, and thank you so much for this wonderful talk on karma yoga. It's been a great experience, and thank you for all the questions that were asked. We all learned. So those of you that are bold enough to questions, thank you so much. The questions we want to ask, but sometimes are afraid to ask. So your questions are well appreciated. And Swamiji, thank you for such great answers. And Swamiji's, if you do want to go over his talk, within a couple days, we should have it on our website. And you can see the link there. So Swamiji, I'd like to invite you, I'll ask him to give a closing chant.
Okay. Om madhuvatartayate madhuksharanti sindhavaha madhvirna santoshadhihi madhunatamutoshasi madhumatparthivagum rajaha madhudyarastu nah pita madhumando vanaspatir madhumagumastu suryaha madhvirgavo bhavantu naha. Om madhu, om madhu, om madhu. For us who seek the truth, and for all beings, may the winds blow sweetly, may the rivers flow sweetly, may the herbs yield us sweetness. Sweet be the night and the break of day, sweet be the very dust of the earth. May the heavens pour down sweetness upon us. May the trees, lords of the forest, bear us sweetness. May the sun shed its sweetness upon us. May all the directions pour forth sweetness. Om, sweetness, sweetness, sweetness.